Monterey Public Library welcomes you to Creating a World for Everyone, presented by LaVerne McLeod. Today's program is part of Book to Action 2021, a grant-funded program of the California Library Association, supported in whole or in part by the U.S. Institute of Museum and Library Services under the provisions of the Library Services and Technology Act, administered in California by the state librarian. Book to Action initiatives tackle important issues in the community and encourage reading, community discussion, and action, focusing on this year's themes of equity, health, and sustainability. Across California, there are 110 participating library locations, 36 unique Book to Action initiatives, and 35 California library jurisdictions. This year, Monterey Public Library selected Cast, The Origins of Our Discontents by Pulitzer Prize-winning author Isabel Wilkerson for this summer's Book to Action and Adult Summer Reading Program. Books are still available to borrow from Monterey Public Library, as well as a book club bag in case you or anyone you know who would like to read this in your book club. We do want to give a big thanks to the California Center for the Book, a program of the California Library Association, the Community Foundation for Monterey County, Othering and Belonging Institute, Tyler Williamson, numerous ally organizations, and the Book to Action Steering Committee with Elaine Gehrman, Laura Lee Alexander, JT Mason, and Leslie Simon. And now it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce LaVerne McLeod. LaVerne is founder and facilitator of Bridge Building to Equity workshops. Based on her childhood upbringing as an African-American in the South, she authored Corn Hollow, a civil rights historical fiction novel published in 2016. McLeod is a public speaker, author, workshop facilitator, and theatrical presenter. LaVerne has taught middle grades in public schools, privately taught into Montessori School, and has served as teacher and staff supervisor at the Gazebo School at Esalen Institute. She has been active in community volunteer work. Along with social justice, she is passionate about climate justice. Currently, McLeod serves as co-coordinator of Big Sur Advocates for a Green Environment and has been a board member of Communities for Sustainable Monterey County. She is completing her second book, a nonfiction on climate justice. She holds a bachelor's degree in education and a master's of arts in counselor education from Southeast Missouri State University. Thank you so very much, LaVerne, for being here.
I want to thank you, Francesca, for having me here with this forum and the library. I'm really honored to do this. And there are times when I actually thought that I'd never do workshops or webinars, and especially when it came to being online. But, you know, there are times when things happen out in the world that we have a tendency to be silent about, that it's really, it has been important for me to not be so silent. So as my hero, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would say, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So here I am doing this, okay? But I'm here not just as not as an authority, I'm here to learn with you as well. So together we can all come up with conclusions for conversations that we can have for creating a world for everyone. And the objectives today in achieving that would be is to dissect the ideal visions that we can turn into action items. And we can do that in our breakout rooms. We can create additional visions with possible actions in our discussions, and we can practice positive visions for change. We can do that when we create and report our visions. However, before we get started into any of this, I'd like for us to get grounded through an acknowledgement with breath. So first of all, let's get here. Let's take a deep breath, inhale, and then exhale. And I'd like to acknowledge the indigenous nations whose stolen land that we could be sitting on or standing on right now, depending on our location. So let's take a breath and exhale. I'd also like to acknowledge the enslaved Africans whose backs in labor helped build this country and other places. Take a deep breath. Okay, our topic, creating a world for everyone. Based on conversations that I've had in previous workshops, in my bridge building workshops, we talked a bit about it in our last session on an ideal society, but today I want to dissect that a little more and create action items for that, because we tend to talk a lot without putting forth what we can do about a lot of things. And so I'd like for you to come forth with this with me without expectations of what you think it's going to be like, et cetera. Because I'm going to start out, first of all, with something that is not so pretty. And it's a little bit ugly, because I'm going to have a short video clip on the criminal justice system, only with prisons, so we don't get carried away into other areas, please. And we're also going to do something with education, but I won't create a scene to video what's going on there, because I think a lot of us can come up with a lot of different conclusions. Now, the short video that I'm going to show you is a video that was presented by or formulated by Bruce Weston, and he's the head of the Department of Criminology and Sociology at Columbia University. Now, even though this clip is 5 years old, it still reveals today's issues, except today, the statistics have risen. And I checked this out through the Prison Policy Initiative of the United States, and also personally checked it out through Jason Bell, a professor at San Francisco State University in criminology and sociology. So when we look at this video, look at it as, how can we change this structure? What kind of vision can we have? And when I say vision, I speak of what kind of image or prediction or outcome could help to mitigate or create something new from this. So let's get started and see this video, Mass Incarceration Visualized.
Mass incarceration means that we've got a very high rate of incarceration historically, comparatively. And the other thing is the rate of incarceration is so high, so socially concentrated, that we're no longer incarcerating the individual, but we're incarcerating whole social groups. The rate of incarceration now is about 5 times higher than it was historically. Historically, it was 100 per 100,000. Now it's about 500 per 100,000. If we look at prison, if we add jail to that, it's about 700 per 100,000. Nowhere in the world incarcerates as much as we do. We've seen extremely high rates of exposure to the criminal justice system for African American men with very low levels of schooling. So if we think about black men who were born in the late 1970s and who are growing up through the American prison boom of the 1980s and the 1990s, the chances that they're going to serve time in state or federal prison if they dropped out of high school is about 70%. So going to prison for that group of black men with very low levels of schooling, that's become a normal life event. And that's really only happened in the last 10 years. We're at this point now where there's about 1.2 million African American children with a parent who's incarcerated, and that's about 1 in 9. The research shows the kids who experience parental incarceration have diminished school achievement, they have behavioral problems, depressive symptoms, acting out. And there's also evidence that these kinds of negative effects associated with parental incarceration are concentrated more among boys than among girls. And there's a very real risk here that incarceration becomes an inherited trait. The underlying issue is we've chosen prison as a way to respond to that problem of crime. And there are a whole variety of ways that we could have chosen to respond to that problem of crime. We've chosen the response of the deprivation of liberty, and we've chosen the response of the deprivation of liberty for a historically aggrieved group whose liberty in the United States was never firmly established to begin with.
Okay. See, I wanted to show you this because in order to include people in society, I wanted to look at people who are basically cast out of society. You know, they are just in a world of their own and not involved in what we are doing now or anything else of that matter. So back to the question. What's your vision of an ideal society as concerns what you've seen about prisons? How could you see that turned around? And if anyone has a brief comment or a suggestion or a vision that they'd like to put forth right now, it's fine. Because we're going to discuss it, all this more intensely when you get into your breakout rooms. But right now, what can someone give me a comment about have seen and how you think it could probably change? Do I have someone? Go ahead and unmute yourselves and talk. I wanted to have a couple of people to do so. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, unmuted here. Yes, for one thing, restorative justice, it addresses, if it were used in the schools instead of the pushing them out, students out, it addresses student misbehavior and holds them accountable in a non-court setting. And I think the outcomes would be better for everyone, communities, students, schools, all around.
Okay, thank you, Catherine, for that. And Sylvia.
The narrative has to change. The
Yeah.
rise in prison started because the war on drug. So every time the society or the politicians try to put in some crime, some fight, we need to stop it. And with the relief on the war on drug, I'm hoping that we can bring down the numbers of inmates. And also we need to release whoever is already in it because of war on drugs.
Okay, very valid point. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for that. So thank you for bringing into play what can be done, a restorative justice vision. I mean, Catherine, you just took that right out of my head because I saw that as a real good example. And Sylvia, you know, when you mentioned the war on drugs that started all of this, it is a way that people can, you know, not have a life. Okay, anyone else want to comment? Anne?
Yeah, so what I was going to say is through experience of a friend of mine who has a Black son in Carmel, I have come to realize that there's a complete double standard and that the Black youth are held to a much more strict and punitive standards, so that you have basically youth, you know, 21 or under, who do minor crimes that if they were white, they would get a little slap on the wrist. Maybe they'd put them in jail for a night to scare them or something. But if they're Black, they're in the system and it's very hard to get out. So I would put forth that the same level of empathy and understanding about young people's ability to make decisions and forgiveness for their mistakes. Black youth need to be given the same benefit of the doubt as white kids who do the exact same things.
Okay, all righty, thank you. Okay, one more and we're gonna move to the next part because we have to discuss other things. I'm trying to find all the hands. Okay, let's do a brief one with, looks like Christy.
Morning, LaVerne. Sorry, I'm coming in a little late. I just wanted to voice how important our voice can be and how scary it is sometimes to use. This morning I went to a webinar by the Commonwealth Club, and it was about a book that was written, Driving While Brown, and it was about Sheriff Arpaio in Arizona, who had the reputation of being the worst police sheriff ever, and the people, the Latinos that went up against him. And I was noticing in the chat that it was all against what the essence of the book was about, and indicating that it was, it was supporting racism. And I stood out and put in the chat something that continued the dialogue on the side of humanity and humane treatment of immigrants, and it turned the discussion a different way. And I was struck with the decision-making process in doing that, whether or not my voice was important. But as it turned out, my saying that the police are also subject to the rule of law, and if they treat immigrants or people that they pull over as inhumane, they are contributing to the problem and not helping the Commonwealth, the people.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. And I can't get to everybody's hands right now, but we're going to talk more in Breakout. And then I want to go to this next topic, that's education. And all of you who talked about criminal justice have extremely valid points. We see what has happened, what's happening now, and why it's happening, based on the color of your skin. So now we're going to take a look at education, and then we're going to come back to criminal justice and education. But what I want to say about education is that it starts at home or wherever one lands at birth. And then we have to look at our young kids, okay? Because I'm seeing that most people on this Zoom are perhaps, not millennials. We, the millennials, Generation X, baby boomers, are the silent generation. And the ones that are going to succeed, the X, Y, and Z of us, it's important that we know what it is that we want them to know, the kids of today, our grandkids, etc. So in looking at that aspect, what's your comment or vision on what's ideal to teach kids at a very young age? What would you say? I'd like to hear from two people. And we do have a reaction button where you can raise your hands. However, I oftentimes don't use that. But so let's have a comment about what you think young kids should be taught in order to create a better world, to have them to know what kind of mindset. All righty, so I'm looking for 2 comments. Go ahead, and if you have one. I don't see, oh, Pauline, would you? Pauline, I see your hand is up.
That was from before.
Okay, well then, all right, then you can take it down then.
I just made a comment though.
Okay, go ahead.
It said teaching young children a sense of history that they just didn't plop out of nowhere, that there's a great sense of history in their family, and to hear the wisdom of elders, and not to just center only on children, but other generations within the family, and the support of those elders and the wisdom of those elders.
Okay, thank you for mentioning history. That's very important. Maria, is your hand up before or now? Okay, go ahead.
It was, and also to add to that, a sense of respect for each individual and gratitude. A respect for diversity, and realize that we are,
Okay.
all equal respect for all people and all cultures.
Okay, teach them
Yeah.
that. That's wonderful. Okay, so now we have a little time. We're going to go into breakout, and we can really get into these subject matters, criminal justice and education. And you will have a choice, excuse me, of which subject matter you want to go into as far as your breakout rooms, criminal justice or education. And we're going to have some time in the breakout room. I want you to have enough time to deal with this. Right now, I would say 15 minutes, but we can give you a few extra minutes if you would like. Now, the question that you need to focus on is this topic that you agree upon, either criminal justice or whichever room you go into, educate. I want you to come up with an agreed upon vision of an ideal society that makes space for everyone to belong. And then say what action or vision has to take, what action is needed for this to manifest. And choose a reporter, and also have a timekeeper. Think about 15 minutes. And we can do it in 15 minutes, then we'll come back and break out, and we'll have a lot more time to hear what you have to say individually, plus can add some more inquiry into another question that I might put forth for you, okay? So with that in mind, look in the chat. You should see your instructions again, an agreed upon vision, and how can this take place? Okay. I'd like to hear different visions, and we don't know who. It'd be interesting if we all come up with the same one, huh? Or 2. If you can come up with more, that's good too. Okay, so let's go into breakout, please. So now that we have returned from our breakout rooms, having our discussion about the 2 subjects, we have 3 reporters, because there were 3 breakout rooms. And I'd like to hear, the first one I'd like to hear is on one of you on criminal justice. Who's the reporter for that? One of your, okay. Sylvia, let's go for it.
I have Maria and the Pauline on my team. And our ideal situation is that we would like the system to change. What we mean by that is that the DA, the district attorney, holds a lot of keys on who to send to prison, who not to send to prison. So the reform on the district attorney has to happen. The reform and education on the police, the restructuring of what the duty of the police should be, needs to change, because that they are dealing with a lot of family dispute and all that. They need to concentrate on heavy crimes, and so that we can reduce the people going in. And third, we need to take the profit out of the prison system. We have a lot of for-profit prison owners. So that we have to lobby the Congress something to change. And fourth, we need to really support the basic pay or the child educational pay so that the people are not so poor. They can get education. But on the personal day-to-day front, we have come up with many possible actions individual can take. We can join the CASA-like system. We can join the village project. We can make sure that the people coming out of prison has support, so they have a way to live without going back to prison.
Mhm.
And so, and we can try to educate so that there is a sense of belonging and a kindness, so that there is some a sense of not the isolation. And there's a whole lot of things. I must run out of time.
Okay.
My teammates.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you so much, Sylvia, because you mentioned so many things that overlap, education and the district attorney reform and lobbying for base pay, et cetera, and education so that people, can have jobs and they're not so poor. It all one system plays right into the other. And you mentioned that very well. And I love the visions, and I can't wait to myself to write down all these notes that all of you have that are presenting with all of these action items. That was great. Okay, let's go forth with a person from the education group. The reporter for the education group, let's see here, would be, I'm looking. Who's in the education group to report? Okay, is it Leslie? I can't hear you. Need
It's Catherine Crockett.
Oh, it's Catherine. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to look. Go for it, Catherine.
Okay, thank you, LaVerne. And our vision, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, our vision was an education system that focuses on the child and the child's learning. Our vision is one that all children have the right to learning opportunities that help them achieve their full potential as learners, engaged learners, and valued members of our society. And we believe that we will get there by, school sizes need to be small enough so that there are enough teachers and assistants to give the students the attention they need and to recognize special needs. We know that all students are not, don't learn equally, and students that often come with broken homes, they come with from foster homes, they come with learning disabilities and all, and we need to take a look at that to see how it can be a more equitable way of teaching these students. And instead of treating everything like a discipline problem, we need to pay teachers a living wage. We need to teach nonviolent conflict resolution in the schools and teach children to learn skills rather than turn to bullying and acts of violence. And that might include yoga, meditation, music, any kind of culturally specific arts and culture. And then also include curriculum that encourages students to become acquainted with other cultures and promote diversity.
Thank you so much. Yeah, all these things that you mentioned, I would really encourage you as a parent or a grandparent or a community person to talk to the school board in your local, in your district, or you could, a group of you can do this and see if you have. Well, first of all, you want to find out if these programs exist, and if they don't, talk to them about how that can formulate, and maybe you can be an instrument in getting that going for the different school systems. This is a real good example. And the example that I had wanted to put forth for education in the schools is I really want to advocate reading programs. I think every child should read. And I think that They lose their self-esteem when they don't feel like they're valued at all, and they feel shamed because they don't have the reading abilities as other students. I think across the board, they should all be able to read at their grade level, and there's so many who are not. And one thing that I did about that in my community is that I volunteered for 8 years with the Monterey County Reads program, where I'd go was assigned to different teachers' classrooms and to help kids to come up to par with that. So anyway, I want to hear from the other criminal justice group, please.
I think that's us.
Okay, go for it.
That was, yeah, Elizabeth and Lee and Janet and me. And, you know, it dovetailed with a lot that people are saying. You know, our vision was twofold in that one was prevention and one was changing the structure. By prevention, better mental health services. There should be counselors in primary and secondary school, mental health counselors to deal with children that are having issues, and restorative justice in the schools. And in the education, for me also, as with you, children need to be able to read, and they need to have the focus should be on the child. Everything needs to be done so that to help that child from kindergarten, not starting in 3rd grade, to be able to get to that reading level. So that was the prevention, and also education education for the child on diversity and respect. But the changing the structure was, as already mentioned, the prisons for profit. Eliminate that. And the other is that was talked about a lot was the role of police. Have the dispatcher have a system where they can have an EMT or a mental health person take care of so many of those calls instead of the police doing what should be done by an EMT or, you know, or a mental health professional. And also change the probation system. It's once you're in, it's hard to get out. What are they doing as for educating to get them out of, you know, and out of the probation system for youth? I was thinking specifically, but I won't take any more time. But many of the things that were already covered, we covered too. So I don't want to reiterate those. I mean, you know.
Okay, thank you for mentioning all the things that you did. And I appreciate that. And I know everybody else can appreciate that too. So we see how these things can be done. And one of the things you mentioned about the police, I think they have to have the training to know and to be able to identify who's, you know, someone where you need to get on the dispatch and call a social worker or whomever that's assigned and trained to do this sort of work. Because I think oftentimes somebody who's mentally ill can be really upset when they see somebody with a gun, and you know, things can go awry. But anyway, we do need our police, you know, for intense crimes, and you know, it's important, and it's just a little improvement and restructuring that, you know, of value, or that would be of value to the entire society. So
can I
are
say
there
one
any
more
other
thing?
things? Yes, please.
Well, it's, you know, when back in the days when Reagan was elected governor, you know, of California, and they did away with all the mental health, you know, when they started taking the money away from those systems that could, it was just been, you know, it's gone downhill since then. We need to you know, police aren't meant to do what was once done by many people. They have a job to do, but it doesn't include being a mental health counselor.
Got it. Point well taken. Okay, so are there any other comments on any of these 3 reports that were just given?
Yeah, LaVerne, this is Robin Lee.
Go ahead, Robin Lee.
I like to emphasize the teams. Eugene, Oregon's been doing this for 20 years. They have a team of EMTs and mental health professionals responding to the appropriate calls, and Eugene and a neighboring community got together to implement this. So the dispatcher determines who's going to go where, and they responded to over 20,000 calls. Only 150 of those calls needed police backup. So 19,500 calls did not involve the criminal justice system. 19,500. That's not small potatoes. But it takes training and dedication, and this saved the community $8 million a year. $8 million that didn't have to go toward the police budget. It went toward this budget. 2 million of that 8 million went toward the budget of a mental health and EMT team that kept 19,500 calls out of the criminal justice system. This is something that can be done today. You don't have to wait around for the schools to catch up or go through legislation. You don't have to do any of that. If your city council or your board of supervisors want to do this, they can do it today.
And thank you for mentioning the model. And you said this is in Eugene, Oregon?
Yes, 20 years. And I just heard of it a year ago. I'm going, where have we been? Where have I been that I'm just hearing about this now? And I immediately called the city council in Salinas and said, look, we got to do this.
Okay.
Once I heard about it.
This is great because you live in Salinas area, right, Robin?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you can be an instrument and maybe get a group of people together to approach the authorities to be, or whoever could help to create this model that's based on another, another city and how it can come forth. So
I mean, we all can do this, LaVerne, because it saves the city's money and they become more effective and keeps the pipeline to the criminal justice system smaller.
Great. So how about going to one of the city council meetings? Are you into that?
I haven't lately, but I need to call the city council member I spoke with because I thought they're starting something, but I don't know for sure. I haven't heard back from her. It's kind of hard, they don't want to really communicate sometimes. So I have to see what's going on. Okay.
This is wonderful that that you mentioned this, because to have a model is very important.
Yes.
Talking about it, but can talk to people who have done this and what it entails. Okay, so thank you for that comment. And Christy, did you have your hand up or was that from before?
No, I just wanted to add to what Sylvia said in our group that we talked about the court response team, a group of advocates, and Tim Dunn is doing through the Village Project, but his funding, he said, is going to run off, is going to, and the problem with that is that this is a needed program. He receives people right out of prison and probation and then advocates on them. Now, the CASA system was started in 1987, and they saw the recidivism of the foster kids going into prison, and they did the court appointed special advocate as a CASA, and I went to their training program. I think we need to have a comprehensive group of people using the model, some of the things from Eugene, Oregon that Robin just spoke of, and then make it a way that we can advocate for these people. Because if you look at some of the disparity in sentencing, so many of the people of color, the Black and brown people, are getting huge sentences, and they don't need to. There's just unbelievable unfairness in that way. And what you said, LaVerne, and what Mrs. Mason said, and what Tim was saying, that if you have advocates in the court at the time somebody is going through a sentencing, and that person can have a row of people that are trained in understanding what that person, the educational problems that they've had to face, the economic, like CASA does, then that judge knows that those people are standing up for that young kid usually that's there, or even an adult, and that they're making the difference between all the ways the Justice Department has let them down, because it's not equal. There's
Okay.
not equity.
That's
And
true. And thank you, Christy, for your comments, because it is important. When you have support, it makes a big difference, as I have spoken in my other groups that you had mentioned. So if the judge sees, oh, these people are interested in this person, things happen inside that internally to make them think that, okay, somebody cares. So maybe I will give this person a chance. All righty. So now we do have about 5 minutes. I was thinking maybe 7 more minutes. There's something that another topic that I want to present to you, and I would like for you to comment on it. And it is, can you create a vision of the world where race didn't even come into play? Is that a possibility, or is that something that I'm just saying? Now, if there is no race, what would it look like? And it could be any system. It could be housing, economics, technology, the earth. It could be humanity. What happens? How could that vision be created? Okay, I'm going to stop talking so you'll have a chance to talk. Go for it, someone. If you have a comment.
Would we eliminate class as well?
Speak how you want to speak. Is it Leslie?
Janet just said that.
Okay, Janet. Okay, go ahead.
I just see that eliminating race and not getting rid of class, we're not going to improve things a whole lot. So. Okay.
So in other words, class structures, you mean like the 1%ers all the way down to the people that are begging for dimes in the street? Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay. So if it didn't include that, what would it look like?
Wow.
What could we structure from that?
The old John Lennon song, imagine.
That's right. That's how visions are created. We imagine them and we create something new. Because
people would care about each other. People would get the support they needed, the education they needed.
That's true.
It could be a perfect world.
Okay. All righty. So Maria, do you have something to say about it?
Well, I was just going to say you have to get rid of the paradigm of scarcity, us versus them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the root of it, whether it's class, race, color of skin, economic strata. You have to get rid of paradigm of scarcity where we are all one rather than us versus them.
Very well stated. Very well stated. So we have 3 more minutes that if somebody else would have a comment on that one. Okay, let's see here. Sylvia.
I personally do not think we can get rid of race, but the question could be framed differently. We want equality and justice. The reason why I say we couldn't really get rid of race is that I grew up in Taiwan. We basically have one race, but still within that, there are still people treated differently. Even like in India, you have the caste system. So the question we really want to ask, how could we achieve equality and justice for everybody living in the world? And I think that is a long road, but that's what we are fighting for. We will get there sometime.
We will sometimes. Maybe our grandkids and those that are a lot younger than us will help them to lead the way. Okay, so it's time to, I'm going to do a little summary and a story, and then we're going to have a conclusion. And I know that other hands were raised, but at the very end, we have to end it on the library forum, but Francesca said that we could stay a little longer and talk if we need to. So, excuse me. I just want to thank you for taking a glimpse into the social issues of criminal justice and education. And you took more than a glimpse. You leaped and you dove in and you came out with different action items. And that's what's really important. And if things seem as if, oh my God, this is overwhelming, I can't do anything about that. Just focus on taking one little piece at a time. His philosopher and historian Howard Zinn said, his quote was, "We don't have to engage in grand, heroic actions to participate in the process of change. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world." So each of our little pieces matter in our different communities. So that's, I feel, where we should start, piece by piece in communities. And another aspect that I would like to talk about is why it's so important for me to feel that everybody needs to belong, because there was a time in my life and I didn't really have the sense of belonging. And that was when schools had to be integrated because I was a child of the 50s raised in the South. Now, with that happening in the state of Missouri, which bordered Arkansas, where we had moved from, I was in trauma for, I don't know, a couple of months before it even happened, because the older people had said, oh, it could be like it was in 1957 with the Little Rock Nine, who integrated a white school, a Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, when the National Guards had to walk the kids to class. The students would spit on them, they'd curse, they'd say things that weren't, all sorts of inappropriate and foul language and names and name calling, et cetera, to intimidate them so they wouldn't go to school. And I thought when somebody mentioned that, like, oh my God, why are they putting us out there like that? Why are we putting us out there like that to be guinea pigs? And to my relief, that after the first day of school, it didn't happen like that. It did not happen like that. And I was really happy that that I was welcome, not all the way welcome. And that's where I didn't feel that I belong, is because in some classes, oh my God, the teachers were worshiping and hoping that this change would happen. And in other classes, you could feel when I would, step across the threshold, like I have talked about in my TED Talk, I've got a semester of this person who, just by the sheer color of my skin, I have to be in this class. If you ask a question, you could get laughed at for just something that didn't make sense. And you get X'd out with your grade, the grading system. There it goes again. But anyway, I like doing things. I could twirl a baton, and I knew better than to even think about trying to be a majorette, because that was not in part of this picture. So anyway, I've been there where I didn't feel that belongingness and that disconnect, but that was pioneering days. I've pioneered through that, and I have navigated through that. And I have done lots and lots of forgiveness in my lifetime based upon where I was raised and the things that happened to me and my family and others in our communities. But I do not want you to experience this discomfort. I would like for you to think about what we can do to have everybody fit in, everybody. And you have come up with lots of wonderful visions and action items, and that I appreciate, because we need to learn to listen to one another and find out, what are our fears? What are our joys? And I find it real fitting to end this workshop with a song that my bridge building technician, Oren Carrick, who's a singer-songwriter, wrote this song, and he couldn't be here today to sing it because he's on the road moving to another state. And he wrote, "To listen is to lean in softly." And those words, I believe Francesca may have put in the chat. But he's teaching it, and you can close your eyes or you can even watch a little image that comes up on the screen. So now we're going to listen. Let's do that.
Listen is to lean in softly, lean in soft with your heart, with the willingness to be changed by what you hear. And to listen is to lean in softly, lean in soft with your heart, with the willingness to be changed by what you hear. Little harmony might be. To listen is to lean in softly, lean in. With your heart, try that again. And to listen is to lean in softly, lean in soft with your heart, with the willingness to be changed, with the willingness to be changed by what you hear. That was pretty quick. I'll sing the harmony again. Do this. Actually, yeah, I'm just gonna sing the harmony. So some of you might sing the lower part. To listen, and I'll be to listen, and we'll just see what happens. To listen is to lean in softly, lean in soft with your heart, with the willingness to be changed by what you hear. And the guitar is sort of playing the melody. To listen is to lean in softly, lean in soft with your heart, with the willingness to be changed by what you hear. Oh.
Thank you for listening. So let's build bridges that connect to us all, that connects, because it's important to feel as though we all belong and to create a world for everyone. Thank you.